I've been fighting with one arm tied behind my back, but what happens when I'm finally set free? Here's your look at the Diamond Select. This is the Captain Marvel, Starforce Captain Marvel, PVC diorama statue. Ace Air Force pilot Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races. Set in the 1990s, Captain Marvel is an all-new adventure from a previously unseen period of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This PVC diorama of Captain Marvel in her Starforce uniform is based on her appearance in the film Captain Marvel. It is made of high-quality PVC and features collectible quality sculpting and paint. It was sculpted by Gentle Giants Studios. Before we feast our eyes on Starforce Captain Marvel, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall the statue stands. Sending out also an intergalactic thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select who live in far reaches of space. They took the time and sent this sample my way. If you're in the market of wanting to pick this one up for yourself, you don't have to go to the far reaches of space. You can check through various online sites, or eventually you can also check your local comic book stores as well. Needless to say, Starforce Captain Marvel stands 8.7 inches in height, and that, in centimeters, works out to be a statue that's 22.2 centimeters tall. Looking at the statue's base, it's generally a small footprint, taking up very little space at all. It serves just enough to, of course, keep Carol Danvers from falling over, and it's successful by that. It kind of resembles a bit like a rock tortoise, if I'm looking at it from the top. The head, the legs, okay, that's a bit ridiculous. But I do like the rock face itself. As you can see, it's been painted rather nicely. The underside, of course, is nothing really to be looking at. PVC, plastic, and hollow to see. But obviously that's not going to be the place that you're going to be looking at when you're displaying this for yourself. I like these little energies that are coming away from the rock, as sort of Carol Danvers leaves away from the terrain. Resting against the energy, though, is this resting skull electroshock baton, which, as you can see, has been painted in somewhat of a violet purple, with darker airbrushed areas of a slightly more darker purple, or even borderline black. It's also on the hilt, or the bottom handle of the baton as well. Overall, though, I'm really happy with how the base turned out. I like the touches of adding the rusted brown, and then you've got these slightly darker browns that are sort of in the recessed areas of the rock. It really gives the terrain a really nice overall detail and texture to it. Of course, then we look up, way up, and we've got ourselves Carol Danvers, sculpted rather nicely here. Presented here in her Starforce attire. Gone are the colors, of course, of the blue and the burgundy red. Those will come slightly later in favor of a metallic green. That looks quite well against the backdrop of the matte black that they've used. The form is nice, which I'll talk about in a second as well, but the paint is generally quite clean and very nicely detailed. Little accented areas there on the sides of her outfit as well. You can even see that they've painted in the buckled area of her belt. And overall, again, like the paint is generally quite clean. I like the metallic green that they ended up going with. The head sculpt is decent. It's passable, certainly, for Captain Marvel. I'm not sure if I really like the mouth or the expression that they gave her. It looks okay, but there's something maybe that's throwing me off slightly for the mouth. At least to its credit, the teeth are painted in nicely. You can see as well, the lips are painted slightly more pink to the otherwise coloring of her flesh around her face. I like the airbrushing of the black around her eyes. That's certainly a nice touch as well, with additional silver that's been added along the area opening of her mask or headpiece, where of course the hair then sticks out. I suppose this could have been an opportunity as well to follow the same suit that they did with the arms and maybe use the translucent plastic for her hair. But she's not so much flight bound. She's still landed somewhat on land. So I guess it would make more sense that she does have just more of the hair on the top. The hair is sculpted rather nicely. They went again the route of more painting it blonde, like a more warmer yellow than anything else. Nice detailing done to the side of the mask. As you can see, some additional silver has been added to the sides. Again, it's not a bad looking head sculpt. Not really sure again about the mouth specifically. Maybe it could be the mouth that's throwing me off, but I'm overall pretty happy with how the head turned out. Then in her hands, she's got kind of two things going on here. She's got a separate piece, which seems to move and float around on its own. I guess in a way, it's a slightly softer plastic, at least softer than the rest of the statue. I guess you probably could navigate this and take this completely off. I don't really know why you'd want to. It definitely does add a little bit of extra stuff to it. But it is interesting that this seems to be a separate piece. I guess it was just a lot easier based on the fact that the webbing of the plastic. It would be next to impossible, of course, to paint the arm underneath that while still having this intact. So they likely probably painted the arm, painted the gauntlets, painted the fist, of course, and then they simply just slid this over top. It's a good way to give you a depth to this statue where you can kind of see the layers of paint working behind the scenes. On this arm, she is sort of holding a blaster, also likely Skrull from Origin. As you can see, there's an explosion emanating sort of from the middle where she's crushed the blaster in between her palm, or in between her fingers. As you can see, there's a nice explosion that's resonated out from it. I like that it's sectioned off, so there's little pieces to the blaster that have broken away from themselves. And these are all done in a really nice translucent orange. I like the way that that was presented. One thing certainly that works in favor of this statue, and really is the case for a lot of the gallery statues, is energy and form. I mean, when you look at the statue, there's a lot of presence of energy happening here. She's not standing in a really boring, uninteresting pose necessarily. She's in a nice, interesting, almost slightly flight pose, almost as if she's about to leap off from the ground. This is one thing that Diamond Select always does really well, I find. Gallery statues, for their price, if anyone was going to get entry into the realm of collecting statues, gallery statues are really the best way to go. Being, again, that they're PVC plastic, it keeps the cost relatively low on these pieces. So on average, I'm not sure the price myself, but a piece this size will probably range about $40 to $50 on average. And that will go all the way up to about $100 depending on the size of the piece. Again, I really like how this one turned out. There are a few things I would likely have maybe changed, but it really is a very, very short list. If anything, I maybe would have changed the mouth expression. Again, the mouth, I get the idea of the way why she's got her face the way that it is. She's obviously in the midst of battle, but I don't know. There's something maybe slightly off about the lips. Also adding the additional translucent plastic to her hair, but I guess that's more just my own preferred opinion as to maybe what I would have done differently to it. I certainly can understand if she's on land, this probably wouldn't have been energy. It probably would have simply just been sculpted hair. But overall, it's not a bad looking statue when it's all said and done. Having now collected, I suppose, two Captain Marvel gallery statues. One was rooted in space, the one that we looked at here in the Starforce Captain Marvel, and one was rooted on Earth, the one that we had looked at before in Carol Danvers with the more familiar outfit that she sports in the film. Some interesting stuff going on with the new Starforce Captain Marvel Gallery diorama statue from Diamond Select. One thing that I do like is that she's got things in her hands. Well, at least one hand. She's crushing, it seems, a Skrull blaster in one hand, causing a mild explosion to occur. A great opportunity to incorporate some translucent orange plastic. I like the way that they've done that. But I also really like that energy that's wrapping around her arm, sort of webbing its way around her arm. Having that as a separate standalone piece that they clearly have just added on top of her arm gave quickly an opportunity for them to fully paint the arm and didn't make it look sloppy. But it also feels like a separate piece, which it obviously is. Being that it is something that was slid over top of the forearm, it gives some depth and it gives a finished look to the piece that I don't think could have been accomplished had they only sculpted all of it together at once. You obviously wouldn't have been able to get into those nooks and those crannies to paint the forearm, so really a smart touch on their part by adding it as a separate piece that they simply slid on to the finished product. I like the pose, I like the energy behind this one, and though I'm not too crazy about Captain Marvel when it's all said and done, it's probably one of my least favorite of the Marvel cinematic movies. I have to admit, this one did come out rather nicely. It's got a lot of cool stuff to go for it, and being that she's also a very small statue in comparison to maybe some of the others we've looked at before, she fits perfectly in my already fleeting space that I have in my collection. A big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select who again took the time and sent this one my way. If you're in the market of picking this one up for yourself, I believe she is available right now through various online sites. Or you can also check your local comic book stores when they eventually open up. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of the Starforce Captain Marvel Gallery statue. And if you are new to this channel and liking the content that you're seeing, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below, turning the bell notification on so that you're getting full notifications as to when new videos are coming onto this channel. And keep in mind that on this channel that videos are going up on a regular basis Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do, and I'll see you guys next time.